Good after evening, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us on this company update. We've not had our fun and games this year, unfortunately. Since I last did a series of updates and some videos, I will be joined a bit later on in another video with the man with the beard, Jeff himself, with his glass of orange juice. Hopefully not milk. If you've not seen our videos, take a look at a few, you see what I mean. Yeah, so the last year has been incredibly difficult for myself and the other half. My mum passed. Have not been in the best place. Julie's dad passed away. She didn't get on with him very well, from what I understand, and she hasn't really grieved. And that comes up to the surface every now and then. Neither of us have been well. I've had two chest infections. Got one just now. I think it's COVID again. Might not be, might be some other bug. She's not been at all well the last week or two. She's had minor operation as well. Prior to that, I had dental abscesses and another chest infection. Whoopee. So for the last month and a bit, I've actually been in bed. We've had the authorities involved for no reason. A lot of hassle that we've had to deal with very expensively. Everything's fine that way, just so you all know. And we will be complaining as individuals about it. It obviously had to be dealt with. We've got Bulk and Fury here. We're short of 56 grand worth of stock. That's simple. It's a huge loss. We can't afford that. I don't know any business that can these days. But I've got a source to get stuff reprinted. We'll get that done in due course. I think you can appreciate that we are in dispute with the people who made the error. I need to get some additional reinforcement for some boxes. We do have a bit of stock that will be getting shipped. Unfortunately, the huge outlays we've had means we're very tight at the moment. But we've got a few assets. We're realising then the next few days we'll have a lot of money in the bank soon. So please don't worry. Everything's looking good. In terms of development process, Jeff and I have basically completed research for Last Small Venus. He's moaning about 4 tankers he doesn't know anything about. Don't care. They can just go hang. We've got some really cool what ifs for it. We have some really good ideas of what we can do. It's going to be in a different time frame because of the small size of the conflict. The game will have four counter sheets. It's looking like company and battalion, maybe regiment. We'll have to double check that as we go through it. And the numbers are easy enough to do. Individual ships, pairs of aircraft, that kind of thing. So should be really cool. Should show the small scale but intensity, which is very high of the conflict. I've started rules development and had a mental block with it because all other rubbish, but I know what we need to do with it. It's getting there, so we're about halfway through that process. A lot of the mechanics are going to be identical to what you're used to with TSWW and what will be in TFWW, so it's very cool. It's derived from it, so that looks pretty good. I'm very excited about it. I've also been working flat out in between times in Watchtower. People are saying, well, you're not going to get games. Oh, yeah, you are. Unfortunately, these big games, and they are huge. I mean, Watchtower is going to be about 3,000 counters, maybe a bit more. It's got 30 odd maps in it. I think I can't remember the exact number. I'd have to go count them. That's the mapping's pretty much done. I've got to do the season stuff, but as you all know, that's the last mapping that I do because I want everything else, put in place. So I'm currently working on the Anzac OB. I've got the navies in. I've got most of the Air Force in. I've got the New Zealanders to type in. I've got, I think, 3 squadrons RAF fighters to put in, and that will be that. Corey's given me data sets for the US, so the US Navy, as I'm sure you're aware, has been done. That has been put in a file. That looks pretty good, really good, to be honest. I'm then going to be working from Corey's data to sort out the US Navy. He and I have also been working on some minor nations because we don't really have anywhere to put them at the moment. Some of them may be held over for Blitzkrieg too. Stuff that's in the Caribbean shouldn't really, in my view, be in the Southwest Pacific, but you guys probably want the stuff. That's going to get looked at. I need to have a chat with Corey at some point to confirm stuff and discuss some problems that I know he's mentioned that he's got with that. So that's all good. Watchtower's coming down the road. I've got a lot of stuff for ground already done from David Hughes and Corey. Some of that will need to be presented in the Word files, and then it's just counter art. So are we on schedule for a pre-Christmas release? Probably not, but we don't control being ill, and we certainly don't control external influences. I rather wish we could. We definitely don't control printers being 6 months late, tripling prices, quadrupling prices, etc. There's nothing we can do about that. We do have a print solution in place that seems to work for counters, which is the big bit. The rest of it, I've got a couple of leads. It's not a problem. I know a company in Dundee could do almost all of it in any case. And it's not a company that I've had issues with in the past. We are in the process of looking at the China incident for a change. I've said that's getting kicked down the line, and it has been kicked down the line. It will be again. But I've spent a bit of time digging through some sources. I think I can now tell you where the arsenals are, which they use to produce weapons internally inside China. That's important in 1937. It's not so important later on because most of them were taken over by the Japanese and were assets stripped with, excuse me, with the Japanese, in their great wisdom, shipping stuff to Japan that they then couldn't really utilise properly. Even so, that's a pretty big step forward. What I don't have is Kuomintang, or Guomindang if you prefer. Arsenals down in the south. I think they took over some, but I know they have others. I believe I've got that in a book somewhere. And some of the stats are pretty interesting. It looks like the various warlords by the late 20s, early 30s could have produced something in the region of about a couple of thousand guns a year. And I mean 75mm cannon. I don't mean, rifles. Few thousand machine guns and a pretty large number, about 500,000, maybe 650,000 rifles a year, along with decent levels of ammunition supply. So yes, there was a lot of foreign purchases, and I'm pretty sure the guns that were being produced in China were reverse engineered or licensed copies of Western cannon, for example. But it looks like they should have had a lot more firepower than they did. But we know from doing a lot of digging previously into this and stuff Jeff and I have done that realistically, if you look at the Singapore OB, Chinese army basically is incompetently led. It is not properly equipped. It's not trained. It's a political entity, not fighting force in all too many cases. It's not every unit's like that, and I'm sure you'll see that as we go through the system. But it does mean that you've got 20,000 guys with bamboo spears instead of rifles, and there's no reason for them just having bamboo spears, except for their political lords and masters not wanting their troops to be properly armed. That kind of explains Japanese success with fairly minimal given the size of the area they're trying to control forces. And also goes to explain some of the things we've found in the Japanese monographs, where they basically say, well, one of our battalions destroyed a division. Yeah, that maybe would happen if that battalion is fully equipped and the division has 200 rifles or 800 rifles, which does appear to be a fairly common thing. So we've done a bit of work there. Oh, God, excuse me. I can tell I'm really well. We're also looking at liberation. That's part of the Blitzkrieg 2/liberation task. Done some reading on it. I've looked very carefully at a couple of books which are clearly written from the US point of view and don't take a rounded approach to the Allied operations. That said, I haven't read that many books from that perspective. So it's quite useful because it counterbalances some of the stuff written by British authors, which are of a slightly different colouring when you look at them. What's really useful is it gives me timelines, it gives me the opportunity with generic information to actually start narrowing it down, going looking with Corey at what we could do in terms of scenario development for stuff in Normandy. I think it's obvious that we need Cobra. It's clearly you need Overlord itself. And there's a case we made we probably need something like Epsom and Goodwood, and possibly one or two of the other US offensives. The reason we would need that is any one of those operations, if they'd gone a bit better, might have won. They might have broken out, especially Goodwood. It came very close. The fact that people screwed up, the fact that troops didn't quite know what they're doing, doesn't take that away. So there were a couple of close shaves. The US themselves, prior to Cobra, actually almost broke out twice on the eastern side, it appears from what I've been reading. It'd be handy to find an English language book written from the German perspective. I haven't found one yet. I've got something going on with Kasserine that I'm reading, not Kasserine, Monte Cassino, that I'm reading at the moment from the German standpoint. I've had a look at a couple of books that talk about some of the macro decision making related to Italy, and I can feel some pretty big what ifs going on there. One of the things that Corey and I have debated multiple times is where the dividing line is going to be between vengeance and liberation. I think you can understand that's a big deal in the Balkans. It should be noted that really the Yugoslav partisans were supported by the British and then the Americans. They were not really supported by the Soviets till quite late on. So there's a case to be made that until the Red Army appears on map, it should be a Western allied or maybe even just a British sphere of influence. That is dubious, and I'm sure you can appreciate why I'm saying that's dubious, but it's something we do need to look at. So that's kind of that. I've taken a few decisions, by the way, about Watchtower, which I'll update in writing. It's not big stuff. It's whether or not I'm putting the Pacific Fleet in it, the British Pacific Fleet, that is. The US Pacific Fleet is pretty much in the game, all of it at some point. The British come on map, then they disappear. Bits off it comes back and does stuff, usually rest and recuperation. What I do know is some battle groups that were being deployed to it hit places like Truk or Rabaul as part of the ongoing suppression of those locations. We could probably do that with a rule. If there's a tightness in space, if it's going to give me a weird number of counter sheets because of this 4-up nonsense that the printers insist on, I think what we'll do is give a rule saying BPF hits this in these turns and that's it. If we've got the room, I might show those battle groups. I can't tell you for sure right now. That is a decision that will only be taken when counter art is being done, because the delete key is a really useful tool when we're doing some of this stuff, unfortunately. Got a lot of what ifs for the Aussies and some what ifs potentially for the New Zealanders. We've got you've already got the Dutch what ifs. It might be worth your while thinking that if you've got Singapore to dig them out if you're playing this game, because ships that didn't get sunk there should have been retained in the Far East. Some of them were, and they operate with the Royal Australian Navy and the US Navy in the Southwest Pacific area as part of MacArthur's Navy to some extent. Some of those ships also operate, by the way, the Aussies and the New Zealanders with SPAC, South Pacific stuff. So, there's lots to consider. I've got to be honest, Watchtower does look like a really good product. It's looking like a great game. I think it's another Singapore bit of a sleeper. It's been a lot of hard work to get to this point with it. As you've all heard, the US Navy's been a bind. World War One, we're kind of stuck with that. Simple as, it's on pause briefly to get Last Venus finished. Jeff and I might talk about that in a wee while. So thank you all for your support. We've done everything we can. We are exhausted. At this point, we're going to have to sell this house. We've got new neighbours over the back who are just horrible. I had that in Glasgow years ago. I'm not prepared to do it again. I presume you'd all kind of guess that this house is a bit cramped. In any case, we'll maybe try and get something a bit bigger. It might be in a more rural location to get more space for the same money, because we don't want a mortgage at our age, which is not really practical. So at that point there's going to be more hassle, more stress, more delay. But we don't have all that many options for that. That's the facts. So we need to do what we need to do. We will be working. We do update when there's good information to give you. I'm very tired of people saying, well, you haven't updated. I won't update unless there is a good reason to do so. There was a good reason to do so today. There's a really good reason to sit and chat with Jeff. Now, Jeff and I really want to do more of these. Neither of us have had time for about 6 months. It's been horrific. I want to get Andrew on here. I want to get Bob on here. I want to have a chat with Bob about this stuff. Because Bob's got news. You know, we now have 64-bit code that works for the map editor. It's got a couple of minor faults, but other than that, it seems to be working. I won't be doing mapping in it for a while because I want it stable and I want it fully operational, but we're getting there. The experience from that drives the computer game. But Bob's the man that I want to have in one of these meetings, so we're going to get him on here at some point in the next week or so. Anyway, have a really good weekend, what's left of it. Have a great week. Watch out for an update. There are some coming, which will codify some of the decisions we're taking. If you want to buy games, please do. If you want to support us, get in touch. We're really excited at the opportunities we've got. We're really excited about what we can do. I just wish that I was feeling a bit better, because I would be running about like the idiot I was when I got all the crap in from the printers. So have a great one. Good hearing that you're still there. I'm sure you're relieved I'm still alive. Jeff's definitely alive. He's a man who's incredibly motivated, really good guy, and I'm looking forward to a chat a bit later on. So thank you very much for sitting and watching this, and see you all soon. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.